Welcome home.
Hey, Breaking Brown family. As usual, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get yourself settled for tonight's show. Give people a chance to get here. Give people a chance to get settled in. While you're here, while you're waiting on everything to happen and waiting to have the conversation, I want you to, as usual, you know the drill, help me out and click the like button. The video gets more exposure if you click the like button. Share the video. If you're watching on YouTube, just go and click that little subscribe button. There's like a little red thing. Click it to subscribe to the page if you have not already subscribed to the page. Also, I would like you to share the video and like the YouTube video. Tweet the video so we can start having the conversations that we need to have in the African American community. Doesn't really matter whether or not you agree with me. It doesn't really matter whether or not you agree with Irony. Like, we're having these conversations, and we are having those conversations with you. We're having conversations where we bring everybody in and let everybody air out their views, and I'm not just talking to you. This is an exchange. We're going to have probably a lighter show tonight. I think a lot of people, last night's show got a lot of people sort of emotional in terms of how they feel and how they felt about, you know, African Americans and how they felt about people diluting that claim on, you know, what we have here in America. So we're gonna have a moment or an episode, and this is the last episode I have, you know, before Christmas, because remember, everybody, we're on Monday and Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were only on last night on Tuesday because we had technical difficulties on Monday's show. So it's Monday and Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is our last episode, you know, before Christmas. So what I really want to do with this episode is get a lot of the questions that I'm not normally able to get a lot of the questions that I don't normally get because I have a topic that we're going to discuss. Now, I have a couple of quick hits, but what I want to do and what I'm going to do today, I want to pay particular attention to the Facebook feed, and I'm going to ask you all some questions, but I want you all to see this as your opportunity to ask me what you want to ask me. You know, a lot of people who go into the YouTube, especially if you're on YouTube, just go into the comments and troll. So, like, no, if you really want to just, like, have a conversation and you're not just trying to be a troll who just gets their jollies off as, like, making negative comments on YouTube, like, this is your opportunity to ask the question. So, that's what we're going to have tonight. But, again, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to get in here, you know, get something to drink, get something to do, get yourself a cigar if that's what you're into.
Hey, there's a special... Yvette Carnell, we are at 9,999 subscribers in YouTube.
If one more person could subscribe, we could just hit that 10,000. If you all can help us hit that 10,000 mark, that'll be great. You've helped a lot of other people hit that 10,000 mark, 20,000 mark, 30,000 mark, or whatever, you know, and aren't even having conversations that are beneficial to the African American community. So, you know, if we could hit that mark, that would be a good thing. I think that would be a wonderful thing for us in terms of what we're trying to do here at Breaking Brown. But the first thing, somebody said put up the number. The first thing, we'll take care of that. The first thing I want to do, though, in terms of just the quick hits before we get to talking, there are a few things that we're going to have to address that just happened this week. And I'm not going to address all of them just yet. But one of the things, and I'm not even going to spend much time talking about this, all thing I want to say is that this whole idea, I understand, and I haven't really addressed this, but this whole Donald Trump Russia thing, you Democrats, you really got to stop. And I'm not telling you to stop for good. I'm just saying, like, until we can get some evidence that is substantiated, and we can review instead of the CIA, telling us something, or the FBI telling us something. It's funny. I can hear black people say, oh my God, what happened to us in Quintel-Pro and all that stuff, and what the FBI did and what the CIA did, and you can't trust the government. But then those same Democrats are like, oh my God, it's Putin, it's the Kremlin. I was watching Glenn Greenwald today. He made a very good distinction between faith-based, something that's faith-based that you believe because you believe in the person who said it, and something that's based on analysis. And I don't think you can have a faith-based a faith-based kind of analysis when it comes to the United States government, given what we know and given what has happened. Doesn't mean that the government is always awful, it's always bad, but we have a certain track record. So I would think we would be sort of questioning, because somebody put that question out to me too earlier today, and like I said, today is about answering questions. So I would be very, very skeptical in dealing with the powers that be in terms of taking their word for the fact that the Kremlin is behind this, or that Russia's behind this.
Yvette, let's be honest now. They're not charging the Kremlin with hacking the voting machines. They're not charging the Kremlin with hacking the rolls.
Nope.
They're charging the Kremlin with telling the truth about what the DNC was actually doing to the American people.
Yeah.
So, like, even if Russia did everything that the CIA said they were going to do, like, they didn't make up those emails.
No.
Like when they said Citigroup told Obama who to put on his cabinet, and then we find out that Obama put those people on his cabinet. Like, that's not Russia doing that, right?
No, that's not, and that's what they're trying to deflect to. That's what we're trying to deflect to. So we don't want to talk about that. We want to just, and you're falling for it. Like how the American people just, how do you have any faith in the American people after a while when you just fall for anything? You just, all of a sudden, like, show me. You had these emails, and you can say, well, and then there was another story about the reason.
They're not fake emails.
No, they're not fake emails. They say, well, you picked on us, you didn't pick on the Republicans. Well, because it was John Podesta who clicked on the phishing link. It didn't happen at the RNC. The Republicans didn't click on that. Apparently, it got caught up. It apparently got caught up in a spam filter. So they didn't click on it. So it didn't happen. But whoever did it, they tried. So, and like I said, the emails were true. This whole thing is to just get us so we're not talking about the emails. So the Clintons can again emerge as victims. Oh, they were victimized by the Russians, and we owe them something, so they can still be a part of it because nobody victim. There's no victim here. Like,
we found out the truth about the Democrats. Like they told it, like that's the truth.
That's the truth.
Like,
this is what it is.
Can't blame them for telling the truth about you.
No. And somebody said, "Oh, see what? Look at it." Listen, somebody said, where's your flag? I just don't have it tonight. I'm not going to wear it every night, but I still believe in it, but I just don't have my flag tonight. We're not going to wear the flag tonight. It's not going to be an every night thing, but yes.
You are every night an American.
I am every night an American, yeah.
Who's owed what American?
Who's owed something. I have a claim here. Every night I have a claim. Every day I have a claim. And you too, African Americans, every day you have a claim. You have a claim to by being African American in this country who built this country with flea label, your ancestors. You have a claim as well. So that claim exists regardless of what you have on at any particular time. That claim exists. Now I don't know if you all saw this, but there was apparently when you start reading articles that actually matter, you forget other stuff or you don't get to see other stuff, and apparently, in terms of the stuff that I've missed in the world of African Americanness, a Negrodom, or whatever you want to call it, I missed a weed. When I say weed, I mean marijuana competition.
What does that even mean?
Between
Our
Snoop Dogg, who?
Our finest minds.
Oh yeah, our finest minds. I'm looking at it. Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa. They apparently had a weed off. Now you're gonna ask me, Yvette, what does this have to do with black politics? What does this have to do with the African American community? Well, I want you to look at that picture, and I want you to tell me what you see. Just look at that picture and tell me what you notice about that picture. Now, I'm going to go back in here and go to a question that Kathleen asked me a few weeks ago. Kathleen asked me a specific question. She said, Yvette, what do you think accounted for the breakdown of the African American family? And I'm not just talking about the nuclear family, but just the kind of bonds and, grandmother and granddaughter, grandkid, and the kind of way we emerged into adulthood in terms of being full, functional human beings. That's the question I was asked. Now, again, look at that picture. What do you see in that picture? What stands out to you in that picture? Now, I'm going to look. Everybody high. Yes. Somebody said everybody's high. Somebody said everybody's slim. Yes. They don't look like they've been eating. They've been smoking. Okay. But let me tell you something else that stands out for me. Snoop Dogg is probably old enough to be Wiz's daddy. Right? Snoop Dogg is in his 40s.
Yeah.
Okay. Wiz Khalifa is not in his 40s. He might be in his, how old is Wiz? I don't know how old is Wiz.
I don't know these things.
We're saying,
I read Hegel, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hold on.
This stands out for me. This stands out for me because of how old, and you know how these people always turn their ages back. So they always turn their ages back. So I'm sure Snoop is probably about 50. If you really want to know the truth, he's probably about 50. He's a guy with gray hair. He's here with Wiz Khalifa.
29.
Wiz Khalifa's 29. Yeah. Snoop Dogg is old enough to be his father. But you don't see that when you look up on that stage. You see two people who look like they might be brothers. Just that they're both kind of, degenerate in their behavior. But I see this as one of them. When you ask about what was the breakdown, I see this as one of the breakdowns. One of the things you have to understand, and this goes to the black family, it goes to any family, is that there are stages in life, right? When you get into your 30s, not even your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you're not a 21-year-old girl anymore. You're not a 21-year-old guy anymore. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably don't even have the body that you had at 2021. I used to be able to eat a plate of nachos at 21 and still have a six-pack. You can't do that no more. Everything changes. There's a season for everything. And what I find a lot of times with celebrities and with everybody, since black people have gotten this thing that we want to be like celebrities. We want to be them. We want to act like them. We pattern ourselves after them. That we don't see the transition to different seasons in life. So you don't have a guy like, you look at Snoop. He's not trying to be a role model for anybody. He doesn't see himself as a father figure to Wiz. He's like, I'm just like you. We both gonna get high, get drunk, do whatever. And I think that's one of the problems. You couldn't pay anybody any of the, I can't think of a lot of women back in the day, the women that I've kind of grown up with, who would be okay with like wearing the same clothes as their daughter or granddaughter. It just doesn't happen. I don't even care if you've maintained a healthy weight. You still don't have that same body. So, the question then becomes, how are young people supposed to learn, and who are they supposed to learn from if we don't do that?
All right, so I think I can talk a little bit about this. There's a lot going on just with the new American life, right? Like, so one of the symbols of adulthood should be being out of debt. It should be having your own place, maybe moving out of your parents' house, being out of debt. I just don't know if that's the new American reality.
Given the amount of people who are like having to live with their parents due to economics right now, I don't even think anybody should be shamed for not being out of debt. Because the thing about it is, we told kids that, like, if you do this, if you go to school, you will get good stuff. You'll get a job. These will be your keys for opening the doors of adulthood, and we don't have that.
It turns out that was a lie.
And it turns out that was a lie.
It's much more complicated than that. Yeah.
And it turns out that was a lie. So I don't even fault people for that. But what I'm saying is that as a grown person, you're supposed to play a role. And the role you play at 40 isn't the same role you play at 60, isn't the same role you play at 70. That's not the role you play. But you're supposed to play a very specific role in terms of the young people who come about. You're not supposed to be just like them. You're not supposed to say, I want to have the same body as somebody who's 21. You're not supposed to be saying, look, I can wear the same clothes. You're not supposed to be, as a 50-year-old, 40-year-old, or 38-year-old mom, going to the same clubs and dressing the same way as your daughter. Now, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but I'm saying there are stages of life. And what we like to do, and even when you look at Puff Daddy, because people can dye their hair, we don't see them as growing old, right? So people have surgery, they dye their hair, and we see them, we look at Diddy and we say, oh, he's the same guy as he was way back in the day. I'm finna go do a little dance. He's the same dude. This is the same guy. He looks just like he looked back then. And you think you're just like you are back then. No, you're not. You were 19 back then. You're not 19 now. And your role in life is different. You don't get to make the same mistakes. You don't get to do the same stupid stuff. Or at least you shouldn't. Because how can people come up? Like, how can young people come up in that? If you're doing the same stuff that you did, how can people come up? How can you teach these people to do different things when you're doing the same stupid stuff that you did at 19, 20, 21, 22? So, and the problem is we look at that and we want to be the same way. I was in the store like weeks ago, and I saw an old guy come in with like, he had gray hair and his pants were sagging and he had like a hat to the back. You missed that moment though. You don't get to put your hat to the back and have your pants sagging at when you got gray hair. When you old enough to have gray hair and have wrinkles in your face, you don't get to do that anymore. You don't get to play the kid role anymore. That's over for you. And what we don't tell other African Americans is like, that a lot of other communities seem to understand, is that like that stage is over for you. You don't get to do that no more. You don't get to come back and say, well, I want to still be that. I like the way the young boys is doing this now. I want to do it, and I want to do it the same way. Doesn't mean you can't have nice shoes, nice jeans, all of that stuff. Yeah. But you can't do the same stuff that you just look the fool. Right, just look the fool.
Let's bring it. Let's make it a little bit more productive. So, what does this mean about political responsibility and taking political responsibility more seriously as you grow older? Taking your community responsibility more seriously, taking your responsibility to. People are going to say that like, well, it's all about family. You got to take family seriously, but you got to take like what we owe as Americans to Black people more seriously, and like the role of political organizing more seriously.
I think we have to take ourselves seriously too. Right. Like part of the problem is, yes, there's a political component to all of this, and we always talk about the political component, but there's a component that we have to serve too, that we used to serve for each other, that we don't necessarily serve anymore, in terms of who we are, in terms of like helping that next generation come up. And that's why I wanted to when I saw that picture, I thought it really spoke to Kathleen's point in terms of what happened to us. Everything, in terms of political economy, everything that we've been saying on this show is relevant. Right. That doesn't mean that how we deal with each other and how we rear young people is irrelevant in this argument. I don't see myself anymore. Once I pass 30, I don't see myself anymore as like a young person. I see myself as like a person who has more wisdom than a young person, and I want to impart
and
that on
more
young
responsibility.
people. I don't even use young slang anymore. Like when you look around, like you got 65-year-olds running around saying, I keep it 100. I keep it 100. Dude, you're 60 years old. You don't keep it anything. Like, why can't you play your role? Like, why don't you, just like there are roles for the seasons, like there's fall, there's spring. There are roles in terms of how you interact, what you're supposed to bring. And so I don't want to ever make this seem like that I'm saying that the only government is accountable and that we're not accountable to each other and we're not accountable for how we treat each other, because we are. We're accountable for all of that. We're accountable for all of that. And like Caesar Vargas just wrote something. Leaving your parents' home at an early age is an American concept, white American, that does not apply throughout the world. Marriage is what gets people out. And some married folks live with family in other countries. And right. I think that's true. Right. I think part of the reason people get out of their homes in America is because of capitalism. I think because once you get out of the home, you start consuming a lot more. You start spending a lot more money. And so the reason that is the ethos in America is just so you can start spending money. You start spending money on rent. You start spending money on heat and gas and everything that you wouldn't be spending money on. So I think we have to kind of, my thing would be, what contribution, whether you work, whatever you're doing, are you making to your family if you're there? Yeah. But this whole thing of like, of where we have to kind of shame each other because of we used to didn't have that problem. We did what we did, in terms of how we lived, and you did what you did in terms of how the majority culture lived. That has nothing to do with us, and we're seeing that in real time. We're seeing that in real life right now. So that's just what I wanted to speak on. In terms of seeing that picture, I think we have to be very clear of the roles we're on. You can't stay 21 until you like 50. Like, that's not the way any of this works. I don't care how much you dye your hair. I don't care how much face cream you use. I don't care how much you work out at the gym. Your role changes as you grow older. As you get closer to death, people, your role changes. That's just the way it's designed to work.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily because you've grown older, but because you're supposed to be getting wiser as you age, right? We're supposed to be wiser at 40 than we were at 20, and that's supposed to shape other aspects of our lives. So if you're not becoming wiser, if you stop reading, if you stop being engaged, if you stop learning, then yeah, you're gonna stunt in other aspects of your life too, and it's gonna show itself in more superficial aspects. But like, I think what we're seeing when we see Snoop Dogg, like, choking up with Wiz Khalifa, like as a competition. It's just that like it's a lack of growth and maturity.
It is, and somebody said, "Well, I take a toke too. That's you." No, you can. Nobody's saying that you can't occasionally engage in smoke marijuana. I'm not saying that you can't occasionally smoke marijuana. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but what I'm saying is that you don't, people, that's the thing that we don't, like, why don't we differentiate? There's a difference between occasionally in the peacefulness and quiet of your own home, away from other people, you engage in some marijuana smoking. I'm not a smoker, but to each his own. But there's a difference between saying that and saying I'm going to have a competition with my nieces and nephews on who can smoke the most weed. That's a very different thing in terms of how you live your life, and that's what he was doing right here. And we got to start saying that, like, there's a degree of selfishness in saying that I can still do whatever I want and have whatever I want. Because what that really says is that I don't have any responsibility to the larger community. So if I want to still dress like this and do everything I want to do, I don't have responsibility for being a role model. I don't have responsibility for transitioning in my life. And you have to have a responsibility. You don't stay the same. You don't stay the same for a reason. You're supposed to grow wisdom. Like, sometimes we act like we don't even understand, like, what you go to college, but you don't even understand, like, what that college was supposed to do, what that college was supposed to be for. It was supposed to teach you how to learn and respect knowledge and engage in knowledge. You didn't go there just to not read books or articles anymore. That's not why you came. That's not why you went. You didn't go there just so, like, you can graduate and get your degree and scroll through Instagram all day. Like, we have to be able to do that. And part of the reason, like, if you're having trouble having a conversation, if you're having trouble doing that, it's probably because of what you've been exposed to. But there's nothing stopping us to this day and age from being exposed to something more. Like, even if you don't want to read the book, just about every author who's ever written anything is on YouTube talking about what they wrote. So you can go and just look at that and listen to the person and like be exposed to something. You don't have to be on there listening to what you were listening to, or doing what you were doing. It's the same thing all the way around. If you think I'm just hyping on Wiz Khalifa and what's the child name? Snoop Dogg. I'm not, because it was the same thing. 50 Cent and Chris Brown had a video, and you couldn't tell who was older. You couldn't tell who was the oldest person because they both sound the same. And 50 Cent was talking about women twerking, and he was working as a John or something. It's just the weirdest thing to hear men who are like in their 40s, going on 50, talking about stuff like they were still 15. There is no transition anymore, but there has to be a transition, or who's going to help the young people? You can't help them. You can't help young people if you just like them. Like, if you like the same stuff, y'all watch the same cartoons, like, I don't understand how are you going to help them do anything? And then when it doesn't work out in their life, they don't even know how, not even just like what they're facing enough. But then if you don't teach them how to be functional, they don't stand a chance. So I think for me, like, that's what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm saying, and I don't understand how that happened. So that was a question that was asked the other week that I really just wanted to address. Now the second thing I want to address, and I want to know how y'all feel about this. I want to go on record as saying that, I think this is a CNN pundit, and I said a long time ago. I said, it was probably the first or second episode that we had, and I said I put this person on the list of Negro whisperers, the people who were looking to get put on by Hillary Clinton by any means necessary.
Look, I didn't even know who she was. I didn't even know who she was. She's making a name for herself. She's scratching and clawing, but like I don't like. She's got nothing for me. She's got nothing for me. She got nothing in terms of what we need. But I want you to. I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about Angela Rye. Now, Angela is a CNN pundit. And I saw this video on YouTube. And I just want. I'm not even gonna frame it. I'm not even gonna set it up for you. I just want you to watch this and come back to me and tell me what you think.
Palms up to the ceiling like that. Start from the back.
Just to see your screen.
I flash several times a week and this has never happened, so it's alarming. So hopefully
it might be the shoes and the dress.
But I hope you can understand from the
standpoint of what it shows on there, it was alarming. Like, I just never...
Honestly, 2 weeks ago, I had my butt patted down by TSA. I flew into St. Louis, so this is just a standard ATD, and it's true.
So we're going to go across the front. Back of the fence. And then I got to get your right boot. This is where I'm going to need your sock. I don't know which.
Is your sock in your thing?
There's no alcohol in here, although there should be some. I was just thoroughly traumatized by the TSA. I'm going to try to post the video later. But apparently the TSA grabs vaginas like Donald Trump. I travel often. I go through a very easy breezy screening process. I've been randomly selected maybe 3 times in my life, and today was the 3rd time. I had to go through the put your hand over your head where they, see the little areas, not just the metal detector. And one of the areas that it caught was my vaginal area. So I go nuts and I say, I don't want anybody to touch me on the vagina. Like, you can't pat that down.
I don't know if you all saw that, but at one point Miss Rye was in tears because of what happened with her and the TSA agent. And let me just tell you something. One of the things I ask myself every time I do something is every time I say something, I try to, and nobody's perfect, but how is this beneficial to the African American community? Like, that's what I ask myself. Like, is what I'm saying beneficial? Now, you may agree, you may disagree with me that it's beneficial or that it's not beneficial, but that's a question that I ask myself. What I'm saying is that I don't understand how her crying at the TSA line is beneficial to the African American community. And I say this number all the time. This is the one, nearly all of the wealth is in this country is held by the top 10%, okay, of white Americans, of white America. That's who have, and I say this number, 37% of black kids live in poverty. I say that because I want to drive that home. I don't understand how, whether you talk about how we interact with each other and how we need to make demands in terms of politics, I don't understand how this video benefited anybody in terms of where we are as African Americans. And what I'm saying is that it gets attention, but what we do a lot of times is that we let people get attention at our expense. Right. So we use our political capital to basically say, oh, you shouldn't have done this to her, or you shouldn't have treated her this way. But understand, that's one individual. And if there's an old person, old woman, old white woman, something patting you down, she's not really trying to fill you up, man. I mean, just the idea, just like think about this kind of stuff before you post it. I think one of the things we have to do is just say, what's going on? Like, what is going on with us that we need that much attention? I know somebody said the TSA is out of control. Well, then file a complaint.
So what? Yeah.
File a complaint. That's not the biggest thing. Like, if you talk about stuff that is most impacting, like what are the things that are most impacting the black community? And the reason I talked about hip hop, because I believe that the conditions that create poverty these are systemic conditions. These are policies that create poverty in these inner city communities that impact black people, African Americans, some brown people too, but African Americans specifically. That's my main concern. I do believe that, but I also believe that hip hop weaponizes that and sends it out to the world and creates a view of African Americans that is not necessarily true, but that's all you know and all you see. So I talk about that too. You may disagree with me, you may not, but the point of the matter is that's why I do it. What you need to do, if somebody is doing something like that and putting this out, you have to ask yourself, is this in the benefit? Is this in the benefit of the African American community? Now, if it's not, don't put it out. Now, that doesn't mean you can't file a complaint with TSA. That doesn't mean you can't do that. You can do that all the time. Every day, all day, you can file a complaint with them. You can file a complaint with them, and you can go through. You can even file a lawsuit. The ACLU, I remember a while back, the ACLU, I think, filed a lawsuit on behalf of black women because they were targeting black women with braids and with locks. And so they filed a lawsuit. You can do that too. There are remedies for when you get feel like you've been mistreated by the TSA. There are individual remedies for that, but I don't think that's something that you necessarily share with the group. I don't think you make that our problem. That's an individual problem, regardless of how you want to think about it. That is an individual problem. Now, what I want to do, Breaking Brown family. I want to go. Somebody said, before I go, somebody said, in terms of a pathology particular to black men. Who said it was a pathology? Did I ever say that the Snoop Dogg Wiz Khalifa thing was a pathology individual to black men?
No.
Did I ever say that?
No.
What I will say is that we can least afford it. Like, there's some stuff that everybody does, or that a lot of people do.
Right. Like cocaine, but we can't do that.
We can't do that.
Black people don't do that. That's for white people. Let white people do that.
Yeah, because we're the people who can least recover. Like, especially, if you're a black person and you do something like that, like, and you get caught, and like you get caught up in the justice system, we're the people who can least afford to recover. So nobody is saying that like this is something that's specific to the African American community. There's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us, and I'll be the first to say there's nothing wrong with African Americans. Nothing wrong with us at all. But we're the people who can least afford to do this kind of thing. So that's my point. And so am I like, people say, are you seriously blaming hip hop? Did I not say at the beginning of this that the ghettos are created by policy?
Right. This is not blaming hip hop.
Like you say blaming hip hop. Understand that the people who are at the boards and these hip hop that decide what hip hop album gets released, these are white people. The people who decide who gets funding, these are white people. These are not hip hop artists. So that's why you see fewer conscious rappers, and you see less conscious rappers talking about I'll bust that nigga in the head and bitch been over and all that stuff. Are you seriously going to defend that to me? Are you seriously going to tell me that white people aren't that white capitalism isn't using hip hop to devalue black life? Are you seriously going to say that to me? Because that's seriously not true.
Right. There's a reason why we don't see Dead Prez anymore.
No.
And that's got nothing to do with the quality of his raps.
That's the reason why you only see Immortal Technique on YouTube. You're not gonna hear him rapping about the fourth branch, and you're not gonna hear him rapping about the media and all that stuff on mainstream TV. You're not gonna hear that, and there's a reason for that. So it's like, oh, you're blaming hip hop. We have to have a more nuanced view of everything. It's not about me blaming hip hop. Yes, they do use hip hop. White capital does use hip hop to kind of paint black people as like people who are degenerate and who are devoid of any type of standards. That's what they do, and they pick desperate people. If you come from a ghetto, and you need money, I would do the same thing. I would say what you needed me to say. That's what desperation breeds.
Do. Yeah, that's what people do.
You're trying to get out. There are people. If you look at when you look at the, what's his name, Chief Keef comes out or whatever, like Chicago, like look at where he comes from. Like, wouldn't you want to get out of there? Like, look at the life that you have to live there. I want to get out of that too. Nobody's saying that he shouldn't take it, but there's a reason why they dangle that carrot in front of him instead of Immortal Technique. There's a reason why that happens. It's just ridiculous to think otherwise. It's just crazy. Like, you can't even this is the thing. You can't even have a conversation on hip hop without having a conversation, without people saying, oh, well, everything, like, without people saying, oh, well, you're just blaming hip hop. Even when you didn't say that. Like, that's all people hear. So you can't offer any criticism. You can't say anything.
Well, if we're going to blame anything, you blame the 1996 Telecommunications Act, that consolidated media power into like 6 companies who decide all of like what we ingest. And what reflections of life and black life and American life like are appropriate. So like there is a political economy.
Yeah, there is a political economy, but you can't say that these people, you can't say that like what they're picking is not degenerate behavior. You can't say that what they're using, and they're doing that in a very specific way, so that they can paint us. So when they kill us off or they put black men in cages, that people can look at hip hop and say, oh, well, it looks like they belong in cages. Looks like that's what it is. There's a very nuanced kind of thing going on here. Right. And it's going on for a very specific reason.
And that reason is not to get money into
black people's pockets at all.
Right.
So, it's just very interesting. So another question, I'm going through the questions that I had. I'm going through the questions that I had, and a lot of black women have had problems with hip hop for a long time. So
and rightfully so.
You know?
Rightfully so.
It's almost like you can't bring that up because whatever. So
no, rightfully so. Like black women have a right to have a complicated relationship. Everyone should have a complicated relationship with hip hop, but do not blame hip hop for what is a political and economic problem in America, and like that has to do with policies and weak political leadership and like. And the inability to take serious, the inability to play defense against an aggressively anti-black politics. Like we just weren't inoculated against an aggressively anti-black politics that came in the form of like a kind of like neoliberalism and some would say white feminism. But yeah.
Yeah. That's a complicated conversation.
That's a complicated conversation.
Anytime you bring up hip hop, you're just blaming black people. So that's complicated. Another question I received, and I'm just going through a list of questions right now because, like I said, today was going to be a Q&A day. If you have a question, ask it. But today's going to be a Q&A day. So another question when we talked about reparations,
what's going on?
Somebody said America is never going to give black people anything.
That's just not true. All right, so America already gives black people a lot, right? America already gives black people a lot. You don't want to know what black America would look like without Social Security. Like that's like you don't want to know what black America would look like. The poverty rates would be through the roof, and then what slim middle class black people between 30 and 50 would be taking care of their parents. Would be taking care of their parents, and that would be a mess. So like.
Well, there's
that, and then there's also let me just say this. I think in St. Louis, I want to say that either 85 or 90% of the public school students in St. Louis are on free and reduced lunch, which means that if you cut that program, there are a lot of black kids who go hungry. Like, so to think that the government doesn't already give black people something is just to not know the truth about government in our life. And let's be honest, the government gives bankers a bailout when they're in trouble. They give farmers a bailout when they're in trouble. They give the auto industry a bailout when they're in trouble. They create wars to generate capital for white defense contractors. If you think black Americans can be real Americans but not take advantage of the government the way everybody else is who's been here for long enough to be able to do it, like you're like giving us a handicap without even like that's not right.
It's like, listen, there's a very good statistic that was published by the Urban League. If you can go look it up. The Urban League published a statistic a while ago which said that if it were not for Social Security, over 50% of elderly black people would live in poverty. That was the statistic. If it were not for Social Security, over half of the elderly black people would be living in poverty right now. Currently, that number is I think is around 19%. It's still too high, but that's not 50%. So unless you can take care of your grandma, by yourself, and you don't
Medicare
need any help from anybody, unless you can pay your grandma's medical bills, don't talk to me about like the government has never done anything for black people and the government will never do anything for African Americans. It will never happen. It actually is happening right now. What we need is more of it.
Right.
And the second thing I find, y'all are some of the people who make that criticism, y'all are some of the most weakest people, man. Like back in the day when black people were being hung from trees, they were still making demands on government. And y'all act like, well, we're not going to be able to do it. Well, no, maybe like you're just too lazy to do it. Like you ever thought about that? Like maybe you're just too lazy to do it. Maybe the problem isn't government in terms of what government will or won't do. The problem is the government needs to be pushed to do anything. And maybe you're just too lazy to push. So you hide behind some kind of pro-black rhetoric at your house, at your TV, and you're too lazy to actually get involved. So you say government ain't gonna never do nothing for black people. Well, you don't. And the only reason you can say that is because you don't know history. If you know history and you actually know the numbers in terms of how many black people get food stamps, in terms of how many black people, get Social Security, in terms of how many, in terms of what we receive, then like, come on. And I think, I think when Trump gets in there and cuts some of this stuff, you're going to find out what government did. You're going to find out what government did for you and what you needed and what you thought you couldn't get. What we need is more government, not less.
And what we have a lot of problems with this because we even have black people. We have black people on the left who tell me that they don't need affirmative action which is the only reason we have a black middle class right now. Like, the black middle class was created through the civil rights movement, and ended in the 90s because during that time, politicians and leaders and black people weren't afraid to say that, like, no, you need to hire black people. You need to go out of your way to recruit black people. You need to give black people jobs. Like, that's just it.
Somebody just said Social Security was not made for black people. That's kind of the point. It wasn't. And guess what? We fought until we were included. We didn't just say Social Security never going to include us. We might as well give up. Because Social Security never going to be for us. We never going to get no Social Security. That's just for the white man. No, you fight until you get it. Like, where did the fight go? I don't understand where the fight go for you to just be like, it wasn't made for us. That's what people say. And that's why I got on the whole Pan-Africanist thing last night. The thing that black people say all the time, like, this government, this country was never made for us. This is the only country you got, bruh. This is the only like you have. I wish I had gotten a statistic on the number of. Somebody told me there are a couple thousand black people who are in Africa who are in Ghana right now relocated. Out of how many million black families in this country? You can't, and that's something that we do as African Americans. I realize that. We base our whole outlook on like one or two outliers. So if we read an article that says there are some black people in Ghana, if we read an article that says there's 5,000 black people in Ghana, we're like, oh, see, we're going to be in Ghana. We don't have to be here. You like 14 million black homes. What are you talking about? The vast majority of us are going to be here and going to make a home here. And like, it would be better if we just didn't view ourselves as refugees here. That would probably be a move in the right direction. But don't tell me, with giving affirmative action, giving the welfare before it got gutted first by Reagan, then by Clinton, giving all this stuff. Part of the reason we built initially a welfare state was because black people were real far behind. Poor whites were too, but we were real far behind because of what had happened to us. These are all things that were kind of built into the system for us. Now they're being taken, and instead of fighting for them, what we're saying is government ain't gonna never do nothing for us because government never did nothing for us. No, read a book. Read a book. What was that book? When affirmative action was white, isn't that the book?
Yeah.
I read that book a long time ago.
Back when Irish were white.
Yeah. Look, read that book. Read that book and see how white people got the hook up. You think white people just became wealthy because they just like they were just smarter than black people and like we gotta do for self because white people did for self? No. Like, you read that book, you realize they got the Homestead Act, they got all kind of stuff.
All of the land grant college, every single land grant college in these United States was taxed in order to build white wealth. Like every single land grant college, University of Georgia, University of California, University of Virginia, every single one of them is like a government program to build white wealth because they weren't allowing black people in until relatively recently. So like that's the government deciding we need to make white people wealthy. We need to build institutions to make white people wealthy, and then doing it. And like we just need some of that. We live in this is the thing that this is very important that people need to understand. We live in a political economy. There is no economy outside of politics in America. We live in a political economy. So any black economy that's not also political is a failing economy that will not work and will not compete and will get actually smashed by the real political economy that is America. So we need to take action in that political economy and think in terms of political economy. That means like expecting your city, your municipality, your state to get black people contracts and make sure that our contracts are honored. That means expecting your government to work for you. That means expecting justice in your streets because we live in a political economy, and that means the government is part of our economic life. We can't just pretend that that's not part of our economic life. And the reason why we don't have as much of an economic life as we should.
And it's the reason, listen, somebody said something a second ago about the Telecom Act. Listen, it killed black media. And that was a letter, and this was during Clinton, and there was a letter that said, they sent a letter to the FCC, and according to the letter, the 1996 Telecommunications Act is much to blame for the state of black radio, not just in New York, but nationwide. That act lifted the ban on the number of stations a company could own nationwide, allowing a few large companies to control the radio landscape. Companies like Clear Channel went from 40 stations to as many as 1,200, the letter states. It continues, the number of independent owners of radio stations owners declined by 39% in the decade following the passage of the Telecommunications Act. Greater consolidation in the radio industry created large radio conglomerates that are less responsive to information and entertainment needs of the communities they serve. And perhaps no other community has been as negatively impacted by this growing media inequality as the African American community. Many black radio stations have historically provided the community with a voice in the fight for greater equality. African American DJs not only provided the community with the latest news and information, but play records, and that's how you got artists, all that stuff. This is policy. When you look around and be like, what happened to all the black stations and all this black media? It's policy. That's what it is. All this stems from policy. So to pretend that life, especially black life, doesn't have that it's almost like there's a very what's her name, the author of Racecraft,
I'll look it up.
Barbara Fields, is that her? Said something very specific, and I think it's something that we need to sort of hit home. And there's a great quote from her in a Jacobin article. I mean, where and the Jacobin article is actually about occupying Trump. I think that's the name of the article.
Catherine Fields.
Huh?
Catherine Fields is the author.
Okay.
Karen Fields.
And there's a great quote in that article of occupying Trump from her, which basically talks about how politics defines the landscape. These are not individual choices. These are not individual choices that people make. That's the kind of American ideology that's preached to us, that these are all choices. And if you make a series of different choices, then life is different for you. No, like this is like policies give the terrain. Policies are responsible for the terrain, right? And that's where we are. And so you can't operate outside of the terrain. This is the terrain. So if what politics does is say you have to get from point A to point Z, and it's a maze. And like the maze that they create is very easy for white people to get through. They get all kind of help. They got people out there helping them, pulling them through. And you have a series of mountains and thunderstorms that are created kind of like Hunger Games. Then that's the landscape that you live in. And what that means is that you're probably going to fail. That's just the landscape. That's just how it works. So what I'm saying to you is that to say and to kind of pretend as if like politics doesn't matter and black politics is something that doesn't matter is a problem. It's a problem. It is a problem. Somebody asked from what source am I reading? The article I was reading just then was the article I was reading about the Telecom Act. It's an article from a while ago from the Griot, and it says, and the title, if you want to look it up, is Black Media Groups Confront the FCC on the Demise of Black Radio. Once again, black media groups confront the FCC on the demise of black radio. And it was at the Griot. It's from like 2012. But if you want to get a sense of how the Telecom Act just kind of destroyed black radio under Bill Clinton, we love some Bill Clinton. That's what we got. So you get a feel for that. You can get a feel for that there. The second thing that I've gotten kind of off base because I want to keep limited in time because I want to take some calls. But that was another question. So I'm just going through the question. Another thing, let's go to the other part of something that I keep getting. And this isn't just about one person. It is about how we have conversations. One thing people keep telling me is whenever I have a conversation, somebody says, "Why did you attack so and so? Why did you attack John Lewis? Why did you attack Farrakhan last night? Why did you attack people? Yvette, you just attack. Let me say, my criticism of Farrakhan last night wasn't even that strong.
He's a grown man.
He a grown man, but it wasn't even that strong. I even said I agree with some of the stuff he said at the beginning. Like, you all got to, some of you, man, with the Messiah complex, like anybody that you talk. Now, wait a minute. And you'll say we should attack other black people. You attack me all the time. But if I have any kind of criticism of somebody else, it's a problem.
Leave Donna Brazile alone.
Oh, Donna. We should talk about Donna. That was another thing somebody sent a question about. What do you think about Donna Brazile?
I think Donna Brazile's ashamed. She should be ashamed of herself. She just walk
back. Did you see what she said, though? Did
like,
you see how she contradicted? President Obama, she basically said, President Obama said that the Russian spying or hacking or whatever they're accusing Russia of, that we haven't seen the evidence. He said, she said that no, they were attacking us up until the election and basically saying Obama don't know what he's talking about. What you see is that these people are spinning out of control.
Right.
They're spinning out of control. You don't know. This was Donna Brazil's life. She was gonna be with Hillary Clinton. That's what she stole. That's why she went and stole that stuff. That's why she got Roland Martin to give her those questions.
She did things she shouldn't have done.
She did. What you see is that these people have been doing. She
did things she shouldn't have done for that woman.
We need to bless. We need to bless WikiLeaks for sharing with us this information. Because what you see is that these people have always put themselves first. And they've always done whatever they need to do for the Democratic Party to put themselves in a position to where they have some power and get a check. And that's what she's doing. And people don't understand, what we don't understand is that, some of these people have lives that are over now. She was supposed to be making money, not as this DNC person, but she was supposed to eventually have something and be consulting for Hillary Clinton, and she was probably going to end up writing another book out of this after she was a part of the administration and writing a book about yes she can or whatever.
Let's be clear, Donna Brazil's career was never going to clean up the water in Flint. Donna Brazil's, we're mourning a career that never happened, but this career was never going to be good for black people. That just wasn't what Donna Brazil was about.
No, it wasn't what Donna. And so Donna Brazil, you don't understand. When your team is in the White House, that's money. Donna Brazil, and then CNN. You remember CNN basically threw Roland Martin under the bus. CNN was like, we don't have nobody that was giving anybody answers to anything. That was Roland. He gave it. They released a statement. This is not me talking. You can Google it. They released a statement saying this was basically all Roland. It wasn't me. It wasn't CNN. It wasn't our reporters. It was Roland Martin doing stuff for CNN. They were doing this stuff behind closed doors. And now she wants to be mad that they hacked and they got the truth. And now you want to say that you got cheated. Why you want to say that you got cheated? Talking about Russia cheated us. Well, you cheated black people when you gave up those questions. Those questions were about Flint water and were about a black man who had been on death row who was asking Hillary Clinton a question. Hillary Clinton was supposed to ask that question off the cuff, but you gave her advance notice so she could come up with the questions ahead of time. I knew she was too polished when I saw it. I said she was mighty polished. She was polished doing all her stuff. I don't even think everything came out. She was way too polished throughout all those debates. And so what you see is that these individuals were putting their individual needs and wants and ambitions ahead of the black community. So I don't even think anybody understands why Donna Brazil, why we be listening to you? Why should we listen to you? What we've seen is that you put yourself first. So what I think one thing that we have to stop doing as African Americans is letting people put themselves first as individuals and not putting the community first. If you want to go on TV, Donna Brazil, and talk about black eyed peas and collard greens and coming from Louisiana and traffic on everything that's in black culture, then you have to do stuff for black people. You just can't do stuff for Hillary Clinton because she's your girl. And that was an interview from a while back, way before Bernie Sanders, where you admitted that Hillary was your girl. So what does it look like for you to even be, at the DNC during that time? Why should you have even been there after the primary was over? These people are not honest brokers. These are just careerist black people who are out for themselves.
Right. Let's not pretend Donna Brazil was ever trying to get people health care or Donna Brazil was ever trying to get people fair housing. That wasn't what she took her job to be.
No, she wasn't trying. She was trying to get put on. She was trying to stay put on. She was trying to stay put on. She wasn't trying to get put on. She'd been put on. But what you don't understand is you can get put out at any moment. So one of the ways you stay put on is you give somebody something free. You can get them all these people. You can get them all these free answers and stuff like that. And get them people they can use and keep connecting them. You got to keep giving the Democratic machine. That's what you got to do. So I think that's something that we have to understand. Somebody said Negro Whisperer. Somebody else said talk about Jay-Z and talk about Puffy while they still around. When I talked about hip-hop, the reason I said that in terms of age and stuff, the hip-hop isn't creating the kind of millionaires it created in Diddy anymore. Then so you have Jay-Z and Diddy who are still around. They about 50 because it's not creating people like that anymore. It's not giving Negroes that kind of money anymore. It's just not happening. So they're still around to kind of make you think that, hey, they still got it and they still got money. That stuff ain't happening no more. People, come on. But my larger point about when I talked about criticizing people, just stop with the, either the question is, the question you should ask when you watch me, the question you should ask is Yvette right or is she wrong? Does she have a point or does she not have a point? Only one of those things can be true. Like, can she substantiate what she's saying with facts, or can't she? That's the question. Anything other than that is just kind of ridiculous, and you probably shouldn't say it. You probably should just keep it to yourself. So I mean, that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Let's have a call.
Hold on, I got 2 more things that people said to get to. Two more things to get to. One thing I got to say is that I said the other night, you could email me at editor@breakingbrown.com and we could come up with some sort of, let's start thinking about it, coming up with a black agenda. And I only got like 1 email. So a lot of y'all talk a whole lot about black agenda and what are the solutions. But when it comes to solutions, you don't have anything to say. That's one thing I got to say. The second thing, I got another message from somebody who all the time, when I said what I said yesterday about African Americans and immigrants and how we're treated and how we have a claim here, the thing that somebody said all the time in the comments on YouTube and some of the comments here, what about white supremacy? Can you kind of narrow that down? Can you kind of, like, why do we keep having these, like, airy kind of ethereal conversations about white supremacy? Why do we, you just can't say what about white supremacy? This is about money. This is about money this isn't just about white supremacy. White supremacy did some very specific things. And one of the specific things that white supremacy did here in this country was steal from African Americans. And we need the money that should have come from that labor. We need a redistribution of wealth. So I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about some kind of broad idea of global white supremacy.
Right. We're just trying to get money in the black people's pockets.
The thing is, like, you can't wax philosophical when your people are poor and need to eat. You don't. Too many black people act like they're white. Like, that's the thing you do when you're white and you have money. You can sit around and wax philosophical. Well, I don't know about this, and I'm going to think deeply about X, Y, and Z, and no, your people need food. Survival is the first priority of all animals. Why you don't think so? Why do you not understand that? You gotta survive before you do anything. And when you got 37% of black kids living in poverty, we're not doing a very good job of surviving. So once we get that survival thing down, then maybe I can talk to you about global, white supremacy. But right now, I just need African Americans to eat and have, and in the wintertime, I want them to have heat and that sort of thing.
And it's never going to be an excuse not to deal with Trump.
No, it's never going to be an excuse, man. It's never going to, like, there's no excuse for not dealing with Trump. You got to stop.
We got to deal with Trump. We got to deal with Trump. We live in a white supremacist country. We still got to deal with Trump. If Trump calls, if Omarosa, once again, we'll tell you, I'm going to get in the camera. Hold on, let me get in the camera and make this clear. So, Omarosa, if you want to call, if you want to talk to us, and if you're willing to talk to us, we would be honored for you to call in or email Yvette at editor@breakingbrown.com, and we would take that call and we would take a meeting because we're not too big or not too proud to deal with Trump in America.
Trump is the president. How do you? Oh my God! How do you, as a member of 13% of the population, and we're struggling right now, say you won't meet with the president of the wealthiest country in the world? How do you say that? Like, what part of your mouth makes you think it's okay to say that? To say he's not my president. And you sound like Tea Partiers. When Obama got elected, that's what they said. He's not my president. Listen, he got the job. And the job ain't going nowhere. And we ain't going nowhere. Stop telling me you're going to Africa. Stop telling me he's not your president. Stop telling me all that stuff. The truth of the matter is he is our president. He's going to be our president for at least the next 4 years. And we need to figure out what he's going to do. And to the extent we can't influence him, we need to do that. Now, if we can't influence him, if we get in the room and we don't make it happen, that's fine. We did the best we could with what we had. But you got to get in the room. Like, we should be trying to get in the room instead of saying stupid stuff like he's not my president. What's wrong with you? What right do you think you have to be like he's not my president? He got elected. That's just the way it is. That's just how this That's just how it happens. So I don't even understand what you're talking about.
I'd rather have the other guy, but that I don't get what I want in America. That's not how this works.
That's not how politics works. You don't get what you want. You don't see all these people. And see, the thing is, they always get black people to do this little stupid stuff. They get us to be like, he's not my president. But you can bet your bottom dollar, everybody else behind the scenes is trying to meet with him and trying to be a part of Trump. You can bet your bottom dollar everybody else is behind the scenes. They said Steve Bannon his one of his advisors was anti-Semitic, but you see the Jewish community got real quiet except for like one organization. They got real quiet. You know why? Because they're strategizing in terms of how they're gonna deal with Trump, what they're gonna say, and how they're gonna work to get what they need to get for themselves here in America and for Israel. Meanwhile, your stupid self on the internet and everywhere else talking about I'm not gonna deal with Trump. That's just the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. Now we can take a call if you want to.
Let's do this. Hold on.
I'm telling you. Oh.
All right, Carl, you on?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Are you on? All right, we'll go to the next caller.
All right, we'll go to the next caller. I'm telling you, Trump ain't my president. Who is your president then? Who? I mean, who?
All right, caller, you on?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Yvette.
Hey.
So, my name is, I won't disclose my actual name
Uh-huh.
for fear of retribution.
Uh-huh.
But I'm currently a medical student right now, and I want to describe the current state of young professionals that are trying to achieve something.
Okay.
Now, I like the message that you convey because you are very realistic. I really think you're very neutral. You do have some of your own viewpoints in there, and of course, everybody's not going to agree on everything, but I do feel like you give the most unbiased narrative out here. Me being in my 4th year of medical school, you get some people around you when you're and I'm a young African American. People around you usually tell you, "Oh, congratulations," and you kind of get this false sense of success. But then when you really calculate the numbers, even higher levels of education don't promise you any form of comfort, because when I calculate my losses, the amount of loans, and where I am to eventually make my first check, it still doesn't add up in a career that lasts until like I'm 60 years old. It's still my wages over the course of time still is not as much, is very close to that of a teacher. So it seems like even in higher level education, there really isn't a distinction in income or wealth reduction.
It's funny during the conversation that Antonio Moore had with Darity from Duke. He didn't come out and say it, but he said it in the sense of a lot of times what you have is debt. Like you have so much. If college isn't gonna open the door that we were promised that it was gonna open, it's dead. Is that what you're Is that what you're experiencing right now?
Yeah. So right now I'm in my 4th year of medical school, and considering the amount of debt I got through undergrad and the debt that I got through 2 years of graduate school, and then the hundreds of thousands of dollars I got through medical school, you only get paid about $50,000 through residency, which is about 3 to 4 years, and then you don't make your first check until you're 35 or 34.
What?
And your career, considering a career that you retire around 60, they calculated it, and over the course of that time, teachers make about $33 an hour, and over the course of that 30-year career for a doctor, with all the overtime, you're still making about 2 to 3 cents more or less than a teacher.
Uh-huh.
So when you consider that economic stance, of course, people will assume you're a doctor, you're great, or you got so much money. That even when you consider my Caucasian counterparts, they have, like you said, trust funds and history and things. So when I'm considering getting engaged, and I have to pay for it out of my own pocket. My mother was not was not well financed. So there's a lot of financial things that I'm supporting solely on my own, with no backing. So even young professionals are kind of victim to the system, and then you don't realize it until you're in the system. You don't realize you need to get your dollars until you get in the system, and by the time you learn, it's borderline too late. Like literally, I can't leave now because my loans are my.
How much are your loans, Carla? I mean, just between me and you, and if how much are your loans? I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Oh, my loans come up to, after this year, after my last year, will be about 310,000.
Yeah.
And that's with scholarships, and that's with grants. That's with as much financial aid as I possibly. Without financial aid, it would have been about $450.
Oh my God! Thank you, Carla. I appreciate your call. I'm gonna address that, but I appreciate your call. I thank you for calling in because we don't really get that perspective very often. We don't really get a perspective from somebody who went to medical school and the cost of going to medical school. And like this dude said $300K. So what he's looking at is that, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate this call, because what he's looking at is that he has this debt. White people who go to medical school, a lot of them have trust funds. They have people who can pay for their college. He don't have that. We don't have generational wealth. So he don't have that. So he's in school. He went to school to become a doctor because that's what you told him to be, a lawyer, a doctor. Isn't that what the Cosby's told us? Heathcliff Huxtable, Claire Huxtable, doctor, or lawyer. That's what you do. But now he's going to be burdened with debt, and he's not going to be making that money. And let me tell you, if you owe $300,000, they're going to be, the minimum payment is going to be a lot. So what you're looking at in terms of black wealth is that you have people who have done everything right and still don't get to live the American dream. Right. That's what you're looking at. Like that's a lot of freaking debt.
Yes.
That's a lot of, and that's regular medical school. That's regular medical school debt apparently. So
I can speak to this.
And let me just say one more thing. I'm gonna let you speak to it. He said I'm gonna be getting engaged. Black people, let me tell you something. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it may be the case that like we don't get to do stuff like that, in terms of like having an actual wedding with costs and stuff like that. Like it may be that we have to go to the justice of the peace and get married and call it a day, because you have to ask yourself, like if you have debt, because people look at it and say, well, he's a doctor. What he was saying is that, and you don't know that until you get there, which is key. He was like, you don't know that you don't have it until you get there and you do it and you're in the middle of it. That's key. So like what he has now and what he has once he graduates, he's a fourth year now. What he has once he graduates is a lot of debt. If you have debt, you don't have money. Like having money, like you're not Donald Trump and you're maneuvering through bankruptcies. Having debt is not money. So I don't know how you spend money when you don't have money. If you love this person, y'all need to go to the justice of the peace and make it happen and have your family there and y'all all go out to dinner afterwards. Okay? That's just my word of advice. All this stuff that we've gotten to, that's stuff for people who have trust funds. Like these weddings and stuff, these big stuff where you spend thousands of dollars, that's for people who do have trust funds. We don't. That woman, if she love you, she'll do it. She won't have a problem. Go ahead.
I will say that, if I actually had a real wedding, we wouldn't be doing the show because the money, like the down payment for this house and studios in the house would have been spent on the wedding. So what we're talking about is like, do you buy a house or do you have a wedding? Black people don't have the wedding, get the house. Because that's the quality of money we're talking about. And there are a few other things that are going on here. It's because debt's fooled a lot of people, and in America, debt's fooled a lot of people in America for the last 30 years because, like, we know that wages haven't gone up, but the price of education has gone up, and then they've been putting a gun to our head, says like, you better go to school or you're not going to be anything in this life.
That's why we're failures. Well, we don't. If black people valued education, we would be all right. No, that's not true.
No, we're valuing education. We're doing whatever it takes to get that education, and whatever it takes when you don't come from generational wealth means taking on debt. And so like the poverty in Black America through debt and through educational debt, the most righteous kind of debt. You want to know what reparations could look like? It should just be like, Black debt's gone.
Somebody said you must have a lot of debt because you're getting a PhD.
Yeah, well, okay. So PhD programs, and this is something I didn't find out until I was like 25. PhD programs are actually funded, right? PhD programs come with funding and a stipend. They don't tell black people this. They tell all the white people this. So
and Darity said that in this video too, like PhD has funding.
PhD programs have funding. It's the master's programs and then the professional schools like law schools and medical schools that don't have the funding. PhD programs have funding. So that's one reason, and they simply don't tell black people this. I was shocked when I found this out, that like they pay you to go to school after undergrad. So yes, PhD programs have funding, master's programs do not. So black people, go ahead, do that PhD because it'll come with a little bit of Skrilla to get you over, and you won't end up with debt. There's another thing. My mom's a nurse, right? It's a good middle-class black job. It was the best job for that generation of like, smart black women. So my mom's a nurse and was a nurse for 30 years, and she saw doctor after doctor after doctor try to keep up with that doctor lifestyle that they saw on TV or that they were told they were supposed to have, and could never pay off their debt. They picked up methamphetamine habits in order to work more procedures, because you get paid per procedure, and work more hours. And then like they would try to get that doctor's lifestyle with that doctor's wife, and then keep that doctor's wife happy, because they try to marry beauty contestants, and that's expensive. That's their doctor. They try to live that doctor lifestyle, and they went crazy trying to live that doctor lifestyle. And like, it's no joke. You think the basketball lifestyle like burns you out of money? Trying to live that doctor lifestyle when you got $300,000 worth of debt, but you still got to find that nice doctor house, and you want to throw that nice doctor party and go on those nice doctor vacations. You can't take a trip to the state park. You got to go to the Pyrenees, and you got to go to France and stuff. Like, no, that gets prestige people more than it should. So black people, don't ever forget that you're poor.
Don't put your don't let anybody like make you try to do that. Like, I think people have to start having honest conversations with whoever they pick as their mate. Listen, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna be out every night. We're not gonna be, we're not gonna do those things. I have debt. We're gonna make some sandwiches and we're gonna go have a picnic. And you need to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, then maybe we shouldn't be together. If you're not okay with like going, we make some sandwiches, we get some nice little chips, we get some nice little vegetables, and put them in the picnic basket, and we go to the park. And that's gonna be free fun time. Like, if you enjoy me as a human being, that should be okay with you, right? Like, no, we're not gonna go out and just be doing fancy restaurants all the time. Just because I'm a doctor or that's the label that I have, or we graduate, this is the life we supposed to be living. No, this is just like, no, that's just not right. And I think what happens is there's like people get put, especially men get put under pressure. Like, that I'm supposed to be taking you to Red Lobster every week or whatever. You can't even get that. Red Lobster's expensive. Now, you been to Red Lobster? It's like $50. Like, you buy that $20 for, man. Don't get me started. Maybe don't get me started on the price of things. That's when you have debt. Like, that's a lot. And people say, well, that's not a lot of money, Yvette. Like, I say this all the time. If you don't think $50 is a lot of money, I want you to take $5, $10 bill is outside. Throw them up in the air and then walk away. I bet you can't do it. It's enough money that you can't walk away from. You can't walk away from it. That's real money. You can throw five pennies on the floor and walk away from it. That's about all I get. I can't even throw a dime on the ground and walk away. I'm not walking away from nothing. But so let's go to the next caller. But I appreciate that doctor's call. I appreciated that, shining some light on that, because we still have a lot of dreams that are kind of connected to the Cosbys and are kind of connected to what we've been told. And I think what we're realizing as we listen to these people is that what we've been told is just not the truth. And we have to build that in ourselves.
And nobody's telling the truth.
And nobody's telling the truth. Like, no, if you become a doctor, he said, no, I make like a little bit more than a teacher makes. And I got all this debt. Teacher don't have nearly that much debt. Like, how much is a master's program? But I know you get a master's program to make $45. That's a problem too. Like, there are all kind of problems.
Expensive.
Yeah, you're making like $45, $50 in some places. Like, unless you go to a pretty wealthy white neighborhood.
No, $42,000 right here.
42
as a teacher.
And you got a master's.
And you got a master's, yeah.
Why you need a master's to teach the children?
I don't know.
But let's take a call.
There's a caller on. Caller, you there?
You there, caller? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, hey, how's it going? My name is Ron. I'm a filmmaker.
Hi.
Oh, okay. Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. I have a question for you. And I know you've talked about this before in terms of economics and how the median income for the black family is around $1,700. And
that's net worth. Median net worth.
who invested in businesses. But the thing that I'm seeing, and you can disagree with me if you want, is that I've done a lot of productions. I've worked in startup capitals, especially in IT. And what I'm seeing there is that there's this cultural disconnect. And what I mean by that is that I don't think that Black people have been educated in money, educated on how to operate a successful business. Because when I look at the type of businesses that we typically start, it's always in things that are like T-shirts or fashion, but it's never anything in terms of like electronics or fiber optics or something that's really important that is going to be the wave of the future. But the real point I'm trying to make with this is that most of the people that I've worked as a recruiter too, worked with, African Americans don't have really good business ethics in terms of working hard, in terms of planning a business. It seems like we want immediate income, something really quick and fast.
Because we
and
need
we're not
it.
planning for the future. Go ahead, sorry.
No. I'm going to let you finish. But you're saying we tend to like want immediate gratification, but that's because we need it.
We have to pay living expenses also. It's not like we can have a.
Yeah, it's not just like we're necessarily always greedy. It's just because like we need it. Like a lot of times we don't even have a partner who we're with who is willing or able to actually like finance us while we just chase our dream, and we have to pay our bills. So we're always kind of looking for the immediate payoff because we need to keep the lights on. But go ahead with what you were saying and making your point.
Okay, so my point is this: I totally understand what you're saying. There's that need for the immediate income, but the real point, I think, is when we look at the immigrants who come to this country, and we can argue that they, I heard you say before that when they come to this country that they have connections and that they can build wealth that way. But I think it really, to me, what I'm seeing from my personal experience, it boils down to a type of culture where we as African Americans, one, have a hard time working with each other. We have a very individualistic attitude and not a collective attitude when it comes to business. And I've seen a lot of businesses that we have started fall apart because individuals just can't get along. So I think this is a carryover from slavery to where there's a lot of animosity, there's a lot of jealousy, and we create this infighting to where we can't work collectively like the Chinese, like the Indians, and like the Mexicans. And I want to point this out too, because this is my background, again, like I said, is filmmaking and IT. I have noticed how in India they have basically co-opted and dominated the IT industry. And that's in certain parts of India, if you go there, it's really, really poor. But they have banded together as a collective to really start schools to train each other in IT. And this is something I see that we're not doing because not that we don't want to do it, but we have that cultural jealousy and hatred to where working with each other is very difficult. And I'm going to put a lot of onus on this on Black men because I don't think that we are building. I don't think that we're creating businesses because we can't get along with each other.
Okay, well, here's the first thing. Here's the first thing I say. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. But here's the first thing. Here's the first thing I say, and I want to keep him on because I want to have a quick discussion. But the first thing I say is that in terms of broke people don't always have the best ethics, especially if you are a broke person in a first world country, in the richest country that the planet has ever known. You're seeing a lot of wealth. That's what you're seeing all around you, and you don't have anything. So that doesn't make for necessarily good ethical behavior. And that's not the same thing as an Indian American or a Mexican American who has come here. Because what America has is this very individualistic kind of outlook. That's what America has. And so we're in America, so we have that too. That's who we are because we're Americans and we're here. So that individualistic trope of American individualism, we have that. The Indians and the Mexicans and the people who have come here, they may not necessarily have that because they have not been raised in that. So what you're looking at is two different cultures. You have Black people, having Black people who've been raised in America, broke, in the richest country in the world, with this trope of individualism, is a recipe for kind of disaster. It's a recipe for Black people to fight each other. And it's not productive for us. But I don't think you can necessarily blame all of us for that. We're trying to get somewhere, and we're trying to get there quick because we're poorer than everybody else. And it's stressful. Like, it's really stressful to work with other people, especially other people who don't have money. You don't have someone who's giving you, $100,000 and, if need be, they could give you another series of funding. That's not your life. And you have people in your life who need things. You have kids who need things for school. You have a wife who may be pregnant or whatever the case may be. So, and people make t-shirts and stuff because it's easy and doesn't require much expertise. Like the reason you have Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg is because his father was wealthy. And so he went to a school, he had access to a supercomputer. So that's why he went into tech, because he had access to tech. We go into t-shirts because all we have access to is t-shirts, and we call that fashion. So really and truthfully, what you're saying kind of is that we can't do that kind of business because we don't have access to what gives us the expertise for that kind of business. Other people do. So I think there are a number of things that go into why we react the way we do in terms of it's not just it's not black culture, it's American culture that we're individualistic.
Actually, honestly, like having been around enough white entrepreneurs, their greatest skill and their greatest monetizable asset is knowing other wealthy white people.
Yeah.
Like that's what's the difference. Like being part of a network of wealth that can take shocks and like make mistakes and try things and like get contracts. Like that's been the difference. It hasn't been skill or hustle.
No, it hasn't.
Definitely hasn't been hustle.
Alton,
what was Alton Sterling doing when he got shot?
Trying to hustle CDs, trying to sell CDs
At midnight. So you can't tell me that a person who got shot at midnight, and that's like indicative of a black America.
Just kind of weird stuff we have to do.
Like Eric Gardner, what was he doing? Like when he got in a chokehold?
Trying to sell loose cigarettes.
Like,
all this, we have to.
It's not lack of hustle.
It's just like all this weird stuff people end up doing because they like, now normally you get that dude a factory job and like you could do that. You could do that for the rest of your life. Does not mean you ever gonna be like an entrepreneur. That's something that we just get confused about. But like part of the reason we sell T-shirts and stuff because that's a low capital business to start. You don't need much money to take a bunch of T-shirts to a printing company and say put this on the T-shirt. It doesn't require a lot of capital. So you find us in those little business ventures because it doesn't require much money. It's not because that's what we want to do or tech. And it's just like, dude, when you talk about we don't have most of us don't have the expertise to start a tech business on our own. That requires a certain expertise.
And it requires access to contracts. Because once you start the tech business, you can't have the entire business. It's usually part of a different tech industry. So you need a contact to get you the contract so that your little component of the tech industry.
And you need the money to protect whatever idea you have. Like people don't understand like intellectual property and what that means. Somebody can just take your stuff, and this is what a lot of white entrepreneurs will do. They'll just steal your idea, and then it'll be up to you to have the money to have an attorney to go there and say, no, this belongs to me. How many black people that even have that? They even have access to that? You know how much money you have to take to an IP attorney to say fight this big company?
Well, you know what Bill Gates did?
What?
He asked his dad.
Yeah, what's your daddy got?
And you know what Bill Gates' dad was?
What?
He was an IP attorney.
How many of y'all right now got a daddy who's an IP attorney? I mean, it's just, and the same thing it's the same thing that goes for Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's dad, he had access to a supercomputer. Like he went to like a school that was like $50K, a high school like $50K a year. He already had money. He wasn't genius requires space to breathe, not to have to worry. He had the space he quit Harvard. If you make that kind of money, you can quit Harvard. Like you don't really need Harvard. Harvard needs you.
He had his Harvard friends though.
Yeah. That's what he went there for. That's what they go there for. Like people think, we go to get doors open for us to Ivy League schools. We're like, open this door for me. That's why I'm here. They don't go for that. They go there to meet people and find people a lot of times to work for them. Like I want to go to an Ivy League school so I can find somebody to work for me. I'm gonna do a company or business, and I'm gonna find engineers and people to work for me. Like we don't understand necessarily how wealth works because we're not a part of that. So. Is the caller still there?
IP attorney, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, caller. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I want you to have the last word.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, but the thing is that I understand how it works from an IT perspective. If you have an idea for a startup, you need to get venture capital, and when you're pitching, it becomes a very big issue because that access to capital, they're going to see you as a black person, and they're looking at a white person. They're more inclined to go with the white person's idea for the startup, and yours is a matter of trust and. And they tend to trust who has the same color skin as theirs. But I still think there is a type of cohesiveness that we don't have. And I understand what you're saying, the access to capital and T-shirts are easier, but I do see a lot of us getting caught up in more of the immediate stuff and more of the flossing and the bling stuff that looks good, but I don't see us actually doing things that will substantiate or sustain us in the long term. So I kind of disagree with you on that. I totally, and I don't think that IT is all that complicated to get in because you could start off very, very small with a basic website, an e-commerce site. But I just see if we do an e-commerce site, it's always, again, going back to it's a T-shirt or a cap company, and I'm like, this is not what we need. We need to start producing goods and services, That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the call. I think the game kind of is always shifting, right? So one of the things that I would say is that when people talk about where black people aren't collective, why aren't we like the collective people, like the Latinos, or why aren't we more like the Mexicans? We were like them. During Jim Crow, we went and started all these kinds of business. And you'll notice that a lot of the people who were targeted during Jim Crow were black business owners who were doing that. Like, so it's not like we never did that. We did this long before the Mexicans, long before the Indians, but we got shut out. We got shut out. And after we got shut out, we were systematically integrated into white culture and in terms of what it means to be an entrepreneur, in terms of being American, that rugged individualism. You know what I'm talking about. So that's what happened. Like, we used to do that all the time. We used to work collectively all the time. But the truth of the matter is, I saw something on TV that said Amazon.com is like shutting down malls. Like, Amazon.com is like giving malls a run for their money. And so if malls can't compete with Amazon now, how is any of that going to work? If we can't compete with Amazon, we can't compete with Walmart. The timing is everything. The time that we could have done this, the time that we could have really made this happen was during Jim Crow, when you had all these black businesses. You had a guy, I mentioned this before, but you had a guy who owned a saloon in one county because the white mobs basically thought he didn't deserve that kind of money. They pulled him out of his saloon and killed him. You had four or five brothers in another county who were business owners. One owned a car dealership, the other one owned another company. Like, this is like during Jim Crow, they all owned companies, and they went squirrel hunting one day, and the white people hunted them down and murdered them. So like the time which we could have. And we were becoming business owners, even without the necessary capital, because we still had segregation. We didn't have the big Walmarts and Amazon. We didn't have none of that. The time when we could have did that, you saw white people in this country shut us down, and you saw that the government didn't do anything to help us. So what you're seeing is that immigrants are doing stuff that we did a long time ago. The only difference between immigrants and us is that they're not being shut out. That is the big difference in terms of what's happening. And so now we got shut out when we had a chance to really get into this thing and try to really compete. So now we got Walmart, and white people can't even compete with that. And so you think we gonna compete with that? That's what's happening. And that's how they shut us out. But that's why you owe us, because we were trying to do all of that and you shut us out. So yeah, now you do owe us, because we were really trying to get in the game, everything from Black Wall Street to business owners doing all this stuff, and you decided, no, we don't like these black people around here making all this money, and they shut us out, and the government did nothing to protect us. The law didn't apply to us. There was no law that and the Supreme Court made a decision. There was no law in terms of black people that a white man was bound to honor. And that's the legacy that's our legacy in this country in terms of economics. So, until somebody does something about that, I don't know what to say.
Next one.
Sure.
You're on.
Hey, caller.
Hi, Army. Hi, Yvette.
Hey.
Hey. This is a really good subject. The young man that called the medical doctor,
yes.
My heart just goes out to him, because that's just outrageous. You go and you try to do the right thing, and you end up falling behind doing the right thing. I do understand your frustration with a lot of callers and a lot of people that's chiming in and writing to you about, you know, you saying negative things. You're not saying anything negative. You're just critiquing things that are absolutely incorrect. And I agree with almost everything that you say about our leaders, about the history of this country. A lot of people don't understand that history. Like, you know, black people have been shut out. We're constantly being shut out. And we were shut out by the government. These were laws that was implemented that shut us out. So if the government was the reason why we got in this situation, it's going to take the government to get us out of this situation.
Exactly.
And I don't understand why some people don't understand, why they're not getting it, why they keep saying you're putting someone down by saying this or by saying that. No. You know, I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know what they're looking at. You know, Donna Brazile and all of our leaders, they've led us astray. Someone mentioned something to me about Michelle Obama was critiquing Donald Trump and said, that's what no hope looks like.
Yeah.
So I want to know what her and her husband look like. I want to know what they look like. Because there was no hope for black people. They couldn't even mention the word black. I'm so over all of these, you know, black leaders. Like they're ragging on you about Congressman Lewis. He needs to step down. All of them need to step down. Every black person that's in office right now needs to step down because they haven't done a damn thing for black people. They're not interested in black people. They're not interested in the black community. They're interested in their own selfish. They're doing it for their good only and for their household. They don't care about the black community. When are the black people going to wake up in this country and see it?
Well, thank you. I think part of the problem is that we have lived so long with supporting each other because we were, we and that's a good thing. This is a very nuanced discussion because you have to support each other, but only to a certain extent. You have to support people who are supporting you. But we don't go that far. We just support people because they're black, right, as opposed to supporting people who support our agenda, right?
So ask the caller about this.
But I'm not following you off of a bridge. I'm sorry. I can't do it anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to me to keep doing the same old, this foolishness that we listen to these people, they talking stupid. None of this doesn't make sense. It's really hard to believe that any of these people are educated when I listen to them. Because this is not smart acting. It's not smart politics. It's not beneficial to our community. No. It's only beneficial to them. No. And I don't understand why most people that are writing into you that they don't get it. But I wanted to say this to you too, because I was one of the ones that said that I'm interested in a solution. Well, I tried to get on edit at breakingbrown.com and I couldn't get on there because I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on Twitter. So you say go to edit at breakingbrown.com.
Just email editor, editor, at breakingbrown.com. And the email will reach me.
Okay, and I will do that.
I appreciate it. Thank you, caller, so much for calling in. She said something that was very important in the sense that, we don't realize that these people don't have our best interest at heart. And what I hear a lot of people say is like, well, let that person get their paper. Just let that person get their paper. No, you can't get your paper at my expense. Right. Now, if you don't want to deal with black people, if you're not trafficking off black people, if you don't mention black people,
go ahead and get your paper.
Then go get your paper. I don't care. But you can't be like Barack Obama, dancing, Stevie Wonder. You got MLK's bust. You put Martin Luther King Jr.'s bust in the White House, and you trafficked on this whole thing the whole time. You were all about black people when it was time to get our vote. But then when you got in the White House, you said you're not the president of just black people. No, that makes you a scoundrel. That's what that makes you. And so we don't want to call him a scoundrel, though. All we want to do is show pictures of him dancing with Usher at the White House. That's what the whole Ta-Nehisi Coates article. Did you read? Y'all need if you haven't read that Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you haven't read that Ta-Nehisi Coates, I've been thinking long and hard about it, and I think I'm just going to break down and just write something like tonight or tomorrow. If you haven't read that, you really need to read it. Because only thing he does is he spends so much time talking about a party and how, we didn't think, we knew this moment was never going to happen again. Well, that's kind of the point, Ta-Nehisi. This moment is never going to happen again. That's why you make something with it. Like when you get your shot, like as a black person, when you get your shot, you damn well better take it. That's just the way it works. You don't get your shot and then just squander it and say, we got a party and we'll never have all these beautiful black people here again. When y'all gonna get over being beautiful? It's time to get some money. Yeah, we pretty and we look good in clothes. And what? Who cares, Ta-Nehisi? Oh my God.
The most frustrating thing, and put your prop on while I talk about this, because the most frustrating thing about the Obama presidency and the aftermath of the Obama presidency, not one person in America is going to say, you know what? I wish I hadn't voted for him because he helped black people too much. He got in there and just took care of his own people. Not one person's going to say that. And that's too bad. Like, I wanted him to err on that side. He did too much for black people, didn't look out for everybody else. Like, would that have been the worst thing in the world if he erred on that side? He fought too hard for us and screwed over white people too much. Like that, like if we're going to get Donald Trump as a president after that, I want that to be the critique of Obama. Like, I want that to be the critique of Obama. Obama tried too hard for black people, so we're going to have to give him Trump. But that's just not how it went down.
That's just not how it went down. That's just not how it went down. That didn't how. Oh, my hat. I'm not gonna see y'all till after Christmas, so ho ho ho. I wish you all the best for Christmas. But listen, that's just not how it went down. Now somebody, I'm just telling me, somebody on the page just said, tell me where to donate or whatever. You can go to breakingbrown.com, which is my website. You can donate there. Also, while you're watching, I want you to like this video. Share this video to your page. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and share it and like the video as well. And you can also tweet it. Tweet the video. Let's have this conversation. You can't challenge people. There's no way to challenge people if people don't even know we're here. If people don't even know we exist. And that there's no way to get these people. Like, people respond to, like, media that matters. People respond to Rush Limbaugh. Like, he has a bunch of channels, but we have a smaller community. We don't even need to be Limbaugh to get people to respond to us. We can do that without being him. We can do that by just being a powerful YouTube channel. That's the power of technology. That's what it affords us, to be able to challenge people without having to be on Clear Channel. We can still do that because of how small our community is. So let's I want us to do that. So, what somebody said, what did they say about no hope? She said about no hope.
Yeah, because apparently hope is more important than policies and contracts to black businesses. Because that's what Obama gave people.
And
hope. That's more important. That's more important. Wealth and color don't matter. Hope does, according to Michelle Obama. I gotta tell you, that makes me feel a certain kind of way.
I mean, it's just insane. Like, money, like, how do you live in the richest country in the world and say, like, money doesn't matter? Because it sounds like that's what she's saying. Her and
Oprah decided.
Oprah's a billionaire. And you're talking to her and
but they had a very intimate conversation where they both agreed that wealth and color doesn't matter. That only hope and living out loud does. You know what money does?
What do you mean living out loud? What does that even mean to black people? What does living out loud mean? Like, if somebody tell me, I'm living in Facebook right now, if somebody tell me what living out loud means, what does that even mean? Like, people say stuff doesn't even
whatever it means, I bet it's easier to do if you have money.
Everything's easy to do when you have money. How are you talking to a billionaire and saying that, like, it's our values that matter, not our money? Like, you're a billionaire and you're going to be well too, Michelle. You're going to be well. You're going to be fine. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you get off my TV with that? So
Michelle's talking about color doesn't matter, as if, like, her being a black first lady, like, didn't get her like, I don't understand what these people are talking about. Like, I don't want, like, color has been the most important thing in both of their lives. It's the most defining thing in any African American's lives is actually trying to make moves. We're just trying to live. So, like, telling them that it doesn't matter. And you know what they didn't say in that interview? And this is important. And I actually think this is so important. I'm going to get the camera. You know what they didn't say in that interview? What they didn't say is that gender doesn't matter. Because if they would have said that gender doesn't matter, white women all over the world would have been going, oh, hell no.
Oh, who you mean?
No, what do you mean gender doesn't matter?
I thought you were a sister in the struggle. I thought you were
I'm trying to.
Oh, my God.
I'm trying to fight for child care, subsidized child care. I'm trying to fight for paid family leave. And these people are on TV telling people that gender doesn't matter. Like, because gender does matter. It's true. We have a political economy organized for white men and, like, the habits of white men. So, like, gender does matter. It's a defining point of, like, a white professional woman's like life.
Yeah, but
So
why
telling
can't-
them that it doesn't matter like is ridiculous. That's why they didn't tell them not to
Why
matter.
can't we jump over people about black issues the way white feminists do jump over everybody when they talk about this?
But you can pick on black people. You can pick on poor people. You can't pick on women like that.
But
Not
why can't
anymore.
we do that? Like the way white feminists jump on you, like wow. The minute you say anything, like why can't we do that? Like the minute you jump on, the minute you say something about us, we need to be on you, like wow. Like we need to be on you too. Like why can't we just be on people's asses the way white feminists are? If you say anything, they are on you like in a way that you got to immediately come out and apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Like we got to be on people like that too to make people say if you say something that's oppositional to black life. Or the quality of black life, or the money that black people get, we need to be on you immediately. Stop saying stupid stuff, and just put you to the point that you have to apologize and donate money to our cause and say you didn't mean it. Like that's what we have to do. But black people don't want to be mean. Like we don't want to be mean. We want to be nice to people all the time. Well, everybody have an opinion. No, they don't. No, they don't. Nobody says that but us. Nobody says that but us. You can't just go around talking bad about us all the time, and we don't get all up in your stuff. Like no, we got to do that. That's part of the process. And I think that's part of the process. We don't want to get swift with people. Like swift and wicked. Like we gotta get swift and wicked with these people. Do we have another call, Art?
Yeah, we got callers.
Let's bring them in. I don't want to leave too many people out there because they're like, why can't I get through?
You're on.
Hello, Yvette.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Have you
So
subscribed?
my name is Rashawn. It's so funny that guy called earlier and said he wouldn't give his name. I thought that was funny. I appreciate your energy. I should say hi to Irony too.
Hey, Rashawn.
I really appreciate your energy. Lately, your energy has been really turned up.
Thank you.
But I think we're all trying to react to. I think there's a moment going on for Black people where we're realizing that we're watching this biracial Black man, who was our first Black president, leave, and none of our lives got better economically in these years. In fact, many of our lives got worse. I'm really glad that you brought up the editor at Breaking Brown, because I didn't get a chance to listen to yesterday's episode, but I did see you wearing the flag. I said, oh boy, she is really I have a really interesting story. I'll try to tell it in 60 seconds.
Okay.
I am from the Bay Area, so like Irony, I'm a native Californian. And I came back a couple years ago to take care of my dad while he was dying. And as a result of some decisions that he made and decisions that I made, I found myself homeless.
Oh.
Yeah,
And
no,
I'm an
that's
Uber
easy
driver.
to do.
I can say I'm an Uber driver, but I'm really a private driver for a limo service, but I also do a lot of Uber.
Right.
And when Irony talks about California being post-Black, I'm like, yeah, man, I left California, bought property in other states, did stuff, come back here. I can barely get by right now. And so I feel what you guys talk about, and you really educated me a ton. But there's some people that I drive for, Yvette, that I've been driving for 2 years. And I will not say their names, but I'll tell you a couple things. One of them is a gentleman who spoke at the Republican convention this year and announced that he was a gay Republican. So everyone will know who I'm talking about just by that. And it happens that when Trump won, these guys invited me to interview for a White House position. So I'm currently interviewing for a White House position as like a couch surfing Uber driver.
Wow.
Which is absolutely crazy. So I'm going to email you, editor at Breaking Brown, because I've got some great ideas, but man, the work that you guys have done to really just educate me on Black economic empowerment and the centrality of economics, and the economic situation, like on the one hand, you paint a picture of how dire it is, and on the other hand, you paint a picture of like how much right we have to expect that the government will do certain things for us. And it's just been really fascinating as I put together the proposals that I've been presenting. I just had an interview yesterday, and I'm probably going to have to go to D.C. in early January to really lock down the position that I'm going for. But it's like when these guys are in my car, and they're venture capitalists, and they were the founders of PayPal. I've been driving them for 2 years.
and they were in my car, and one day they were like, Rashawn, what do you think we should do for black people?
Oh my God!
And I said, what? Like, I'm their driver, they're talking, and I'm like a fly on the wall. And they're like, what do you think needs to be done for black people? And I said, you know what? It comes down to 3 words: jobs, not jails.
Woo!
Like, if we
go
could
ahead.
get jobs and we could get money, and they were just like, jobs, not jails. I'm like, yeah, guys, you don't understand. Like, we got 800,000 black men that are incarcerated. I'm on the road driving. I can't tell you how many times I get harassed because I got to hang out in the really wealthy, like super wealthy areas in the Bay Area. And how many people call the cops on me? Oh, there's a suspicious looking man. Cops knocking on my window when I'm sitting on my iPad with my suit on. I'm like, do I look like this is a clean car? Just checking to see. Can I see your drive? Like, what are you checking? So like, this is like the first time in my life that I found myself like in between some situations that are kind of dicey, and really excited about the opportunity to be a positive voice in this administration. I mean, when I tell white people that I'm interviewing for this position, and the white people that I'm talking about are the people in my faith community. I'm a Quaker. Okay. And so I tell them, hey, I'm interviewing. You wouldn't believe the vitriol, the resentment. Wow. How could you work? I said, I'm black. Yeah. I'm black. We don't have the luxury to say no. What are you talking about? You guys are benefiting. We got to get whatever we can get. Like, and black people have been less disgusted. I think the black people, my family and friends, they're excited because they're just like, man, you've been driving for these guys for 2 years. Trump wins. And all of a sudden they're looking at you like, man, you've been saying a lot of things. Like, maybe you should interview for this position in the Office of Public Engagement. I'm like, yeah. But like, I don't know where people get off of that, thinking that we got the luxury to not compromise. I mean, we know LBJ was a stone cold racist.
You drop the N-word all the time.
Stone cold racist.
Yes.
We've been negotiating with racists since, what, 1492?
That's what we do. That's what we do.
So, Yvette, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Yvette. I'm just gonna say you and Antonio from LA and Iremy and everybody, you guys really inspire me. I feel like there's some really good stuff going on. I mean, as a people, Yvette, you and Iremy probably know as good as anybody. We are very distracted people. We do not realize how severe the fight is. Like, we don't realize it. But I do think with technology, we're waking up. I mean, I'm listening to you. I'm parked in my car with my Uber phone on, but I'm listening to you guys. So I just want to say, happy holidays to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything.
No, thank you. Thank you. That was I appreciate that. That was a great call. Thank you so much, caller, for that. Like, that was a great freaking call. We've had some great calls tonight.
So that's what happens when you're around wealth. Like, he was just the nearest
I gotta come over here.
He was the nearest Negro.
He was in it, and like, I appreciate that, and he's so right. Like, no, like you can't just be like, say no. Like, no, he'd be crazy. He's driving. He's a driver, but he's doing that for other people. But he's driving for Uber, and y'all want to tell him people want to get in his car and tell him he shouldn't go work for Trump. Y'all crazy. What's wrong with y'all, Deshaun? Deshaun, thank you so much for that call.
And here's the deal about that. Trump might. He wants to make a name for himself. His ego is so big, he might be one who says, I want to be the best president for black people since Lincoln. And you know what? Feed that.
Yeah, like get around him if you can. Get as close to these people as you can. Like, these are the people, whether you like them or not, these people run America. That's who they are. You can't be saying, I don't want to be around them. And he's right. Like, this is a practical decision. I want to say, and he mentioned Antonio, he mentioned Iremy. Like, I'm grateful he appreciates what he's doing. I mean, Antonio has a new article actually in Newsmax about, about Barack Obama, and check that out as well. But it's interesting. I was thinking about his article in Newsmax, Antonio Moore's article in Newsmax, and I was thinking about that because people are like, oh, why would you write in Newsmax? Listen, the game has changed, and when the game changes, you have to shift. And I think that's something that Rashawn understands, that you have to shift. But one of the most interesting things about what he just said is how close, even though he doesn't do anything wrong, he's clean, he's driving a clean car, and he's talking about all these different situations where he's been in where people have called the police on him. So even if he's doing everything right, but he's still being put in a position where he could be arrested, where he could go to jail if he makes one wrong move because of how racist people view him as just an African American out here trying to make some money. And like how black life is just always on the edge. Here's a guy who's I just listened to him. He's well spoken, he's articulate, but he's saying like, listen, I'm out here and I'm having to do Uber and a whole bunch of other stuff, you know, and be on the couch or whatever, homeless, because this is just black life. Nothing that I did wrong. So I mean, isn't that black life right now? Isn't what he's describing black life? But you're gonna tell me that he shouldn't interview for a position in the new administration because you got an issue? You know, I just don't even understand. Like, I don't understand like what we're doing. I understand what Uber's doing though. Uber done gutted labor law so that you can just like, you know, he has to get like 4 or 5 stars now. He gets deactivated. Like, that's the life he has to live. And you're going to tell him that he shouldn't take a good government job? Like, that's the conversation that you want to have with him? I mean, I don't know, black people, but we gotta put together our own agenda and work with it. And we got to work with whoever is in the White House. I don't care who is in the White House. I don't care that it's Trump. You got to stop caring that it's Trump.
And what's the one question that we want out of our people?
How are you going to put money in black people's pockets? He said, did you hear what he said? Jobs, not jail. That was a great, that was awesome. Jobs, not jail. God damn it. Jobs, not jail. What we want. We want jobs. We don't want jail. All these black people in jail, especially black men just in jail. No, we want jobs, not jail. So that's about the end of our show tonight, black people. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm going to see you on Monday of next week. To that time, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, and whatever else you may be celebrating. Have a joyous time with your family. Happy Hanukkah. Have a joyous time with your family. Enjoy them because family matters. I'm going to have a good time with mine. So I just want to thank y'all for tuning in, and I hope this show helped. And remember, email me at breakingbrown, editor@breakingbrown.com for the Black Agenda stuff so we can put something together, because you never know. You never know what might work out.
We're trying to get some subs. We're trying to make moves here, guys. So, like, subscribe to the picture. Tell your family. Subscribe to the page. Tell your family about Yvette Carnell show on Monday and Wednesday nights. It's the dopest black news out there.
All right. Thank y'all.